every Saturday at 5:30 Kenyan time on KTN News.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
Welcome back to the last hour of Kivumbi 2022. And as I promised, I'm speaking to three gentlemen. I'm speaking to Jack Tumwa, former ECK commissioner. He'll be telling us the practice back in 2013 when he was a commissioner. What happened? Did we have this committee that brought every government institution on board? So he's joining us. Suba Churchill, National Coordinator, National Civil Society Congress, is joining us virtually. And we have John Kagushia, who is the Speaker, Nyeri County Assembly, already seated. I'm speaking to the three gentlemen in a bit. But first, let's come back to the Super One, because this is how we set the show rolling. We begin with the election plan of the IEBC, June 15, 2021. This is a date that has lapsed. It was the launch of IEBC Election Operation Plan. Then a few days later, 3 days later, it was the launch of the Strategic Plan for 2020-2024. And next is the election timelines. The voter registration, phase 1, August 2nd to 16, 2021, also lapsed. Then we had the phase 2 and all but certification and publication also lapsed. That is August 2nd to 16, 2021. December 9th, 2021, that in a few days, that's on Thursday, parties, primaries, and nomination. End of fundraising, rather, for aspirants will end on the 9th, which is Thursday. Parties, primaries, and nomination, October 18th, 2021, already to June 24th, 2022. That's still on. Submission of nomination results to the Commission, October 18th, 2021. That calendar is still running. And the amendment to the nomination rules, you were given until January 16th of next year if you're a political party. Resignation of public officers, this is a big issue. If you intend to vie, you have until the 9th of February next year. Submission of party membership list, you also have until April 9th of next year to submit the party membership list. And of course, IBC election plan still continues. Submission of names for nomination of candidates goes to April 9th, 2022. Next year, April 9th. Gazettement of candidates and primaries, dates April 9th to 16th next year. Conducting of party primaries, very important, very divisive aspect of political parties, April 16th to 22nd of 2022. Independent candidates to submit names by May 9th, 2022. And there's a move in Parliament to ensure that if you run on a political party, then you cannot move as an independent candidate. You need to make up your mind. So you have until May 9th next year to submit your name if you want to run as an independent candidate. Nomination for presidential election by May 30th to June 10th of next year. We must know all presidential candidates. Nomination for governors by 7th to 10th June next year. A nomination for Senate by 30th May to June 2nd of next year. You must have submitted all those names to the election. Nomination for members of parliament, May 30th to June, runs concurrently. Nomination for women rep, June 3rd to June 6th. Nominated candidates list out by June 24th, 2022. This is cast in stone. IBC election plan still continues, and the campaign period officially, you heard the Deputy President William Ruto say the other day that they've not begun campaigning proper. May 30th to August 6th, 2 days before the election, 48 hours, 24 hours before the election. Notice of general election, March 14th, it will be published. An election date has been set for the 9th of August of next year. At least now you know the election date. And results at the polling stations after that must be transmitted by between August 9th and 10th, 2 days after the election. Declaration of all results at the National Tallying Center must be in by the 15th, and gazettement of those results thereafter, August 15th. And of course, the plan still continues. Composite of the defunct committee. Let's take a look at this, the next page now. because it's also very important. So this involves the team that runs the election. The reason why we're doing Kivumbi 2022 tonight, the judiciary headed by the CJ is a member, Attorney General Kihara Kariuki, the CS Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, PS Interior, Karanja Kibicho, ICT, very important, Joe Musheru is a member of that team, and that's the reason why politicians are jittery. CS Treasury Ukuri Atani, he must be involved, he has all the money. ODPP doesn't have to be Nudin Haji, he can nominate, send a rep. Hilary Mutiambai, IG, Office of the Register of Political Parties, doesn't have to be present. She can also send someone to that committee. The team continues. NCIC, very important because of hate speech and all. Chairman of the Council of Governors will be there. Currently, he's the Embu Governor, Martin Wambora. He must be within that committee. CAK Director, who was former CEO, IBC, Ezra Chiloba, is a member of that team. And of course, NIS Director General is and must be represented into this multi-sectoral team. Now, the mandate of that team that I have ably described tonight is promote consultation, collaboration, and coordination of the general election, advise the government on the requirements of the election. They're asking for a new budget, coordinate electoral assistance by donor communities. That's very important. Remember, that team needs an additional about 19 billion shillings. Facilitate legal reforms required for the conduct of the general election next year. Facilitate the provision of necessary ICT infrastructure for election. Facilitate the investigation and prosecution of election-related offences. That's why the ODPP is sitting right there in that team. Facilitate the expeditious conclusion of pending election-related cases. Receive and consider reports on election preparedness. Perform any other function that may be appropriated by the terms of reference of this committee. And of course, this is where we end tonight with our board, but this is the subject of a discussion. Before I end, there's one more: reasons for the politicians rejecting this committee, because that's the elephant in the room. Now, UDA says there's possible conflict of interest, which will be determined tonight. Legal framework under which the team is or was set up lacks. Sole mandate of the IBC to prepare for the election in Kenya. They're saying Article 88 is so clear. Read it together with Article 249 of the Constitution. That is so clear. Presence of cabinet secretaries in the team, and they're more concerned with the interior, the representatives from interior. And IBC, this is now previous engagements between the IBC and the state actors. Now, this is also an elephant in the room, because they've said, but we've never seen such an organization, such an outfit. However, tonight we find out, have they existed? IBC has worked with the ORPP, that's the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, we know that. IBC has worked with the National Police Service. IBC has worked with the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. IBC has worked with the Judiciary Committee on Election. And IBC has worked with the Election Security Arrangement, which is very important tonight. Election Security Arrangement, what does it do? I just want to go into that because it's very important, because most of the things that have been said tonight and will be said tonight is based on that. Now, Election Security Arrangement Project is a brainchild of the IEBC, and it convened towards a peaceful election back in 2017. Now, the project brought together a number of institutions. Let me count the institutions now: the Chief Justice, Director of Public Prosecution, AG, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Register of Political Parties, Peace Building and Disaster Response, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, among others, who expressed their commitment towards a peaceful election. Now, that is where there's contention. Who chairs that committee? And of course, their previous involvement. David Maraga, CJ, was involved in that. And now, the reason why this may work or may not work, legal framework for this committee does not exist in law, and around the committee there is no face or even legal standing. One of the main reasons why this has been challenged, and they continue to challenge it. So the politicians are using this to tell the Chief Justice to stay away. Well, time now for our discussion tonight, because it's a good place to begin. Why is it that politicians are reluctant? Why is it there are so many things that the politicians have been saying about this? Does the IBC have a basis for leaving? Do they have a case? Can this be changed? Can we have better representation, or can that representation be scaled down? And that's why tonight we speak to three gentlemen. I've mentioned Jack Tumwa, former ECK Commissioner, Suba Churchill, National Cohesion, National Coordinator for the National Civil Society Congress, and the man who's sitting with me on the table tonight, John Kagushia, who is the Speaker of the Nyeri County Assembly. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. Let me begin with a little bit of perspective to what we're discussing tonight. And for this, I will involve Jack Tumwa. Being a former commissioner, please guide us through what happened during the time you were a commissioner in the ECK. Did we have this committee? And if we had this committee, how did it work, Jack? All right, I really needed that perspective from Jack Tumwa, having served as ECK commissioner, because that's where this discussion starts. A lot of questions that have been asked tonight, and Kenyans continue asking, is there a basis for the Chief Justice to chair this? First, is there even a legal framework for the same? As we wait for Jack, let's speak to Kagusha now. Good to see you tonight. And you're a practicing politicians. Why are politicians so against the formation of this committee?
This committee is illegal ab initio. This because we do not have any legal mandate, any legal formation, any legal structure that is set by Parliament. And I know that one of the requirements that had been set was that the Parliament would be able to come up with electoral amendments up to the end of this year. And one would expect that if this kind of a committee was envisaged, it should have been somewhere in an amendment bill, or we should have that as a legal framework that is instituted in our legislation. But as we talk now, we do not have that. And so this committee cannot be legal whatsoever. In fact, if you look at the mandate of this committee, it is actually the mandate of IEBC. Okay. And you wonder, why would you want to take the mandate of the IEBC and give it to another
Who is taking the mandate? Who is taking the mandate from the IEBC?
No, it's this committee that has been created, that has been formed. Mm-hmm. And you see, the IEBC is the one which is mandated to source for resources, to come up with the legal requirements, to come up with any kind of coordination of elections that is required. It is the IEBC that should do that. Now, if you look at what you have indicated before, that IEBC was involved in cooperation with other agencies of government in the past in organizing the elections. But it's not that you need another committee aside and separate away from the independent electoral body to be coordinating, organizing, controlling the elections. In fact, that is not allowed. And the Section 26 of the IEBC Act prohibits that. It says that IEBC will not be under control of any other person. It will not be under any coordination of any other person. But where do you
get this perception that the IEBC will be under the control of this committee? Where do we get that? Because that's the elephant in the room.
Just look at the mandate of that committee. You have talked of resource mobilization, coordination of resources from donor community. You've talked of overseeing the elections and seeing that we have, of course, the coordination of the other agencies. That is a mandate of IEBC. It is the IEBC that is actually supposed to do that activity. That is its mandate. It's not this other committee. And if the IEBC would wish to involve any other committee, then it's up to the IEBC to do so. And it's expected, actually, that out of the public participation and stakeholder involvement, they would involve other agencies. Okay. But that must be done within the purview and within the mandate of IEBC.
Okay. Perhaps, Joanne, if you could bring back the mandate of the IEBC on the screen so that we see them, even as we try once again to speak to Jack Tumwa and Suba Churchill. Suba Churchill, if you can hear me now, what is the practice? Why do you think the politicians are so against this, are so against the involvement of this multi-sectoral agency? All right, I hear we still have a challenge. We will try to get to that. But I'll bring back the mandate of the committee back on your screen. But even as we bring that, I'd like to mention the team members, Speaker. Yeah. The judiciary, headed by Chief Justice Martha Koome, Attorney General Kihara Kariuki. We have Fred Matiang'i, who is the Interior CS. We have PS Karanja Kibicho. We have Joe Musheru, ICT, Treasury, has all the money, Office of the DPP, must send a representative, police must send a representative, or we have IG Mutiambai in it. Office of the Registrar of Political Parties must send a rep, NCIC must send a representative, Chairman of the Council of Governors must send a rep or himself, the chairperson, CAK, Ezra Chiloba, NIS. When you look at this list, it's very comprehensive indeed in terms of the membership. But the concern is only with two, CS Matiang'i and PS Karanja Kibicho.
No, well, I don't think that is a concern. The concern is that this committee is illegal, ab initio, as I have said. It's not founded on law. There is no legal structure for this committee. You cannot conduct elections through a committee that is not in law. You've got to legislate this so that then you can be able to separate the mandate of this committee from the mandate of IBC. And that's why IBC has a problem itself withdrawing. In fact, the issue of the cabinet secretaries does not even arise anywhere, because in the first place, they are all skewed and they are all, they're not independent. They have declared their political support for a candidate. They have declared their political support to a certain side. And so for them, we cannot even debate their case, because for them, they are in for a candidate. They have said they're in the handshake, they are campaigning, and they're actively doing so. I have seen the cabinet secretaries actually in the campaign trail for certain cabinet, presidential candidates.
Okay.
So you really cannot then say that a politician, a cabinet secretary, who is actively campaigning for another candidate, is now going to be sitting in a committee that is going to be organizing an election.
I think that is the issue.
That is just one of the issues.
One of the issues. There's no legal framework. However, we have had committees in the past, and one of the committees that I want to talk about is the Election Security Arrangement Project, right? This is a brainchild of the IBC. Look at the constitution of that. We have the Chief Justice, Director of Public Prosecution, Attorney General, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Register of Political Parties, Peace Building and Disaster Response, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, among others who have just committed that to a free and fair election. Now, no one has a problem with this, including the IBC itself.
Who says no one has a problem with that?
But who has mentioned?
And you say there's a brainchild of the IBC.
Yes.
If I slaughtered a big cow in my homestead, you cannot say that this cow is too big. You're my neighbor, and you say this cow is too big. We wonder how you're going to eat it. So we are going to come and call a council of elders in the village and decide how we are going to be feasting on this your cow, or how it's going to be divided amongst your children. Okay. You cannot do that until I invite you. You've got to wait for my invitation to my homestead to come and help me. Even if I need help, you really can't come on board on your own accord. You'd have to wait.
You have to be invited.
You'd have to wait for IBC to initiate this process, because you cannot come and control the functions and the mandate of the IBC. That would be illegal.
I still want to talk about this perception of control, because this is a multi-sectoral forum. Where is the notion of control coming from? But I hear we now have Jack Tuma, former ECK commissioner, and good to see you this evening now. I hope your network won't fail us once more. What is the practice? Take us back to 2013. Did we have, under Isaac Hassan, did we have such a committee? And if we had it, who chaired it? What was the wider mandate for this?
Thank you, Ken. I was there earlier than Isaac Hassan. I was there in 1997. We came up to 007. What we used to have then was a liaison committee. A liaison committee brought the ECK to work together with the political parties in matters concerning the election. The technical areas that we are talking about, which brought in the security, that is the police, which brought in finance for purposes of money, which brought in judiciary for purposes of organizing petitions, were organized, but they operated under departmental heads. The problem now is that we have brought in the really top. When you bring in a CS, when you bring in the head of the judiciary, it makes it extremely difficult for them to come later on and be people who help in solving problems that arise. It is okay for that, for this technical committee to operate, but let it operate at a much, much lower level and report to ECK. In my view, there is nothing wrong with having these technical committees. We have had them, we have used them, we need them. I think the problem now is the members who have been identified to run these committees. It is going to cause a problem.
Okay.
If we want these committees to run, you may go as far as involving political parties to send in their representatives, which will not be feasible at this moment. I think it is only fair that Mr. Matiang'i, the CJ, leave this thing to be operated by their heads. During our time, the ministries send in their undersecretaries. You know, undersecretaries are 2 steps below the chief secretary as it is now. These are the people who are supposed to deal with these technical matters, and if they fail, then they go up to the top. But the way we are operating it now, the top is the ones which is organizing, and in fact, it makes me wonder, what is independence? What does the independence for IEBC mean? It means really it is not independent. It is not going to operate. Can you imagine a situation where Jebkati will chair a meeting which is attended by the Chief Justice, which is attended by Matiang'i? I think we are not serious.
Very interesting observation indeed. But I want to ask you a direct question, Commissioner. Do you have a feeling of undue influence or even control if the cabinet secretaries are in that committee? Do you have that feeling that this will exert undue pressure to this committee?
Precisely. That is my biggest fear. It means they don't have confidence in ECK, and that is how, I mean, in the IEBC, sorry, you know, I have to keep talking about ECK because that is where I belong. It is an indication, really, that they don't have confidence in the operation of the IEBC. If the Constitution gives those powers to IEBC, the IEBC has not shown that it has failed in one way or the other. We know that for a long time, IEBC has been asking for money, which has come in so late. We know that IEBC has submitted lots of legal requirements for them to be passed by the parliament. This has not been effected. And they come in this late to say they want to run the show. This is not right, and I think it's going to cause problems.
Okay. Very interesting, Speaker. Yeah. There was a liaison committee.
I'd like to read for you.
Yes.
Section 26 of the IEBC Act.
Okay.
It provides that except as provided in the Constitution, the Commission shall, in the performance of its functions, not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority, but shall observe the principles of public participation and the requirements for consultation with stakeholders. So the Act, of course, so that means that really you cannot have this commission directed, controlled, or be subject to any other authority.
Okay. Aside from itself.
Apart from itself, unless provided by the Constitution.
Or a legislation as that.
Well, it talks of the Constitution,
but the legislation can be amended to create room for that.
That would pass.
I'm looking at Article 88, the wider Article 88. I'm also looking at the independence of the IEBC and Article 249. And this is so clear in my mind. However, I want you to get this out of the way. So far, nothing has happened in this country to show that the IEBC has been subjected to the control of these institutions. Nothing has happened. And politicians like you, just apprehensive.
No, really. By the formation of this technical committee, automatically IEBC has now been put under control. You know, let's talk of budget issues. The budget for IEBC is a very simple thing. It should just be provided through the appropriation bill, which is done. And if not properly appropriated, then we should have a supplementary bill that then provides sufficient resources to run IEBC. When it comes to the ICT, we have a fully fledged ICT department in IEBC. Why do you need Moshero to come and provide guidance, control, direction, authority over IEBC on matters ICT? Remember, all this is being done under the backdrop of that the next election is going to be done in a boardroom. It's going to be done by the system. is going to be done by the deep state.
Do you think that's a feeling?
No, it's not a feeling.
It's the truth.
I mean,
how do you
it has been said that many times. I actually did a show with the Jeremiah Kioni Honorable
which is
some times ago, and he actually alluded to it.
Alluded is not a factual.
And he actually said that it's going to be done through the system. So basically, what
that's a perception. I just need you to,
perception is just. Perception is very important. Okay. Perception, in fact, can just be reality. If you perceive something to be real, then it becomes real. So this perception must be removed, that the election is going to be under the control of the system, of the deep state. The election must be seen, not only be seen, but also must be perceived and must practically be independent, must be fair, and the process must be just. And it must be verifiable, it must be accountable. And that must be very clear to every Kenyan. And every person who gets into this election must feel comfortable. The liaison committees that existed before were not independent technical committees that were run by cabinet secretaries, that in fact were chaired by the CJ. Remember, the Chief Justice is supposed to be above all these shenanigans. Is supposed to be a person who is at the end of the process. Should there be a dispute arising from any other parties that are participants in this election, then the Chief Justice should be at the tail end to resolve any kind of dispute. Yes. Now, imagine now the Chief Justice is in fact part of this process.
Don't you think it's an advantage to the politicians?
It can be an advantage.
The advantage is this, Speaker. If it happens that there are massive failures in the process, right?
Yeah.
You have as a lawyer the right to go and question and say, but the Chief Justice, you sat in that committee that made all these mistakes, that didn't see this happening. So by that alone, they were involved in a flawed process. Don't you think it's an advantage to raise an issue?
If bringing the judiciary and the judges into the processes is going to make it easier and an advantage to politicians, then I think governors, they should also have chief magistrates, or if should have judges in their offices also.
Who are representing
the judiciary. Really, it can't work.
Yeah.
So my thinking is that the Chief Justice should just do their work. The cabinet secretaries should do their work. I don't think the cabinet secretaries are short of duties. I think we have a lot of challenges with this country ICT infrastructure and systems that the cabinet secretaries should be taking care of. The issue of security in this country is so serious that you wonder why the cabinet secretary in charge of security is so interested in the electoral process at this particular time and not engaging in taking care of our Kenyans who are insecure in different areas. We have people who are dying of cattle rustling. We have people who are dying out of mugging and other challenges that we have in this country, which are security-based. Why should the cabinet secretary be so engrossed with the issue of the electoral process that he would want to patronize? Why would
and those
that
are the
be?
things that raises those fundamental questions that you're raising. But let me ask you, do you think, before I go back to Tumwa, do you think the IBC did not know actually what was going to happen until they attended the first meeting and they realized, oh God, what's happening in here? So they decided to withdraw. Do you think that was the reason?
No, I think IBC was trying to act in good faith.
Okay.
Yeah, they tried to really probably understand and hope that there was some goodwill in all this and good faith in all this. Of course, by going there and looking at the mandate and looking at how it's taking off, definitely they knew something is amiss. Okay. They smelled a rat. They were suspicious, and they had
said,
to leave.
No, we're not staying
of course, it would be foolhardy of the IBC to go and sit in a process that usurps their authority, their mandate, and continue sitting in that kind of a process. It will not be right.
I want to throw this panel
sooner than later. This committee will actually start doing procurement for IBC. You know,
we have the right ICT person there. We have the right supplier there. Okay, I want to throw this panel into the works. And Tuma, this is to you. The IBC has intentionally withdrawn from this. They don't want to be party to it. The same IBC, Tumwa, that has questions about its impartiality raised. And in fact, the other side of the political divide is raising questions over the place taken by the IBC chairperson. They are questioning his ability to run an impartial election. His credibility from the other side is being questioned. On this side, the other political parties are also saying, you know what, IBC don't work with these people. They want to interfere with your Article 88 mandate, so don't work with them. I mean, from both sides, how do you balance this? How do you get out of it as a commissioner or as a commissioner?
Ken, I choose to believe that Chepkati joined that technical committee in a belief that he was going to head it. You remember using this media at your studio, I've said many times that it is important for Chebukati to involve all these stakeholders in the preparation of the elections. And Chebukati, I believe, just did exactly that. But to go there and find himself being put on the periphery instead of gearing, instead of piloting that process, I think he must have found himself quite uncomfortable. And as I've said earlier, I don't believe Chebukati will be comfortable sitting in a technical committee, which is headed by the CJ, where the cabinet secretary, Mr. Matiang'i, is sitting, and participate effectively. That effectively takes off the independence of the ECK. And this is why I'm saying, as far as the technical committee is concerned, is perfect. But let the representatives be at lower levels. That will work very well and be chaired by IEBC. In fact, during our time, it was not even chaired by the chairman. It was chaired by the commissioners who are heading those subcommittees. So for us to bring the second top person in the country to chair IEBC and expect that Chebukati will not be subservient to him, I think is expecting too much.
I know I
not
asked,
only that,
I know, Commissioner, I know I asked you a question. Yes, I know I asked you a question that you are going to, but I just want to follow up on what you have said. So are you saying, if at all the Chief Justice ceded ground and said, I might be senior here, I had a whole branch of government, but it will be chaired by Wafula Chebukati, who is in IBC, you're saying the IBC would have been okay with this?
It would be uncomfortable. I mean, let's face it. The Chebukati will not be comfortable chairing a technical committee which is attended by the CJ as just one of the members. And we cannot make the CJ be just one of the members. It is not right.
Okay, now you can go to the second part of my question.
I was drawing you see, Ken, to the history. I think we Kenyans, we forget history pretty fast. Everybody hailed the 2022 elections as being one of the best in Africa. And the reason why we succeeded in that election is that the Electoral Commission was let to run its business. I remember there was some occasion when the late Moi tried to check one or two things. Kivuitu stood his position, and the commissioner stood their position. And I wanted to salute the late Moi, let God rest his soul in peace. Once he had a position taken by the ECK, even if he wanted it, he said, let it go. Now coming back to 2007, one of the things that brought those problems is that there was some form of interference from the central government. And perhaps this is the type of thing that is happening. And I think we have to watch out against this. We know that the commission has not been given its right. It has not been given the resources. It has not been given the legal support. And these things are coming in late. Let's realize that we cannot change the date of election and give these supportive elements so that we leave the IBC to run the election. Let the technical groups run, but at a lower level, not at the CJ level, not at the cabinet secretary level.
May I intervene, Majungu? I'm struggling with my camera, but I've been following the discussions.
All right, please. I thought you were not going to join us, but yes, you may.
No. I've been following right from the beginning, and I think to my surprise, the two colleagues that are speaking seem to suggest that the chairman of the IBC feels intimidated. Yet one of the qualifications to be appointed chair of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is that one must be an advocate of the High Court, qualified to be a judge. Now, what our two colleagues are suggesting is that Chebukati feels intellectually challenged to sit in a forum and share ideas, general ideas on how best the elections can be conducted. Is that what Commissioner Jack Tumwa is suggesting? Is that what my other colleague is suggesting? That Chebukati feels thoroughly intimidated, so intimidated that he cannot sit across the table with the Cabinet Secretary Matiang'i, with the Chief Justice. What if Chebukati himself applied to be the Chief Justice? Would he go before the panel and disqualify himself? Secondly, we are talking as if the IBC under Chebukati is one of the most competent commissions that this country has ever had. I want to congratulate Jack Tumwa that in the ECK that he served in, at least that commission delivered on its mandate free and fair election. In fact, two. The referendum of 2005, there was a general feeling that it was conducted in the most professional manner. There was election of 2002. It was felt that that election was conducted in the most competent and professional manner. Look at the Interim Independent Electoral Commission and later IBC under Isaac Hassan. It delivered on the referendum of 2010. What has this IBC under Chebukati delivered on that it is now claiming that this recent development, which I think means well, is the only one that is going to interfere with its independence? Is this not the same IBC whose election outcome, 2017 presidential election outcomes, was nullified by the Supreme Court? Today, these two gentlemen can sit with us, despite their many experiences, to tell us that IBC is incompetent, save for the fact that this ad hoc committee that, is purely consultative. I wonder how IBC can deliver an election without working together with these other government agencies and ministries. The reality is, independence of an institution is determined by, one, the manner in which the membership is appointed. Secondly, the manner in which that body is resourced. Thirdly, is the functional independence that we are talking about, decisional independence. I do not think that this ad hoc committee that is merely meant to consult on matters relating to elections is sufficient for IBC and Chebukati's chair to purport that it's going to lose its autonomy. In any case, going back to appointment, save for the recent 4 commissioners that were appointed in the most transparent manner, who doesn't know that it is a poorly kept secret that the manner in which the 3 commissioners, together with the Chebukati, were not the best performers during their recruitment? Who doesn't know? I mean, it is the Standard newspaper who told the world some of the intrigues that went on during the appointment of Chebukati and company. Now, if somebody is almost second last in the list of interviewees, and is that person independent in the first place? Does that person not owe it to the appointing authority? Because why it not for the appointing authority? We all know that in matters appointment, the top 3 can do the job. Okay. Chebukati was none of those top 3. Okay. So when people sit down and tell us that they are now craving to protect their supposed independence, yet the manner in which they were appointed, left a lot to be desired. Okay. I mean, that is a poorly secret that I want to remind my colleagues in this panel not to lose sight of, because these matters, some of us are not as forgetful as my colleagues seem to be. Thank you.
Speaker, you have to respond to that.
Yeah, well, first I think I want to advise my senior, Suba Churchill. It's always cautious to refer to that other colleague by their name. My name is John Kagushia. I really don't think we need to make this a Chebukati issue. When you talk of Chebukati being intellectually challenged, I think really those are personal attacks that really do not add much value to this discussion.
It was a question, Kagushia. He asked, is he that he cannot sit before? I think it was a question.
Well, I think the issue of this technical committee is not supposed to be initiated by external forces. If there was any need, and indeed there is, That need is there, and it must be there. That IEBC must work with other bodies and other government agencies. That is a given. It must be done that way. But that must be initiated by the IEBC. It is not loaded over IEBC. It can't come from an external force. I mean, other external agencies cannot be salivating too much as to organizing an election which they are not mandated to do so. So the issue of how Chebukati was appointed, as to how he is independent or not, as to how he's competent or not, really, that is a matter of the Constitution, how his appointment was done. Was he appointed constitutionally? Is he there constitutionally? If he is not, or he has not performed properly, then he has his commissioners to be able to appraise him. And he has KPIs that he should meet, the key performance indicators that he should be able to meet as he's performing his duties. And so for that reason, then, the commissioners should be there to supervise and see how much this gentleman is delivering. Okay. So I think we should not make this to be an issue of Chebukati. Again, the gentleman, Suba Churchill, really tries to describe how independence of our body should be measured. I don't think it should be measured based on all those points that he has given. It should be measured, or it should be determined by the Constitution. When the Constitution says that a body is independent, then it should be independent. Its independence is not subject to its performance. No. Its independence is not dependent on its financing or funding. No. Its independence is based on the Constitution. Does the Constitution say that it is independent? Yeah, that is guaranteed by the Constitution.
Okay. My question, I'd like to go to Suba once more, but let me ask you, Speaker, this. What happens now that we need, let me not even ask you, let me ask it to the former commissioner. We have to run an election in this country. These institutions you have mirrored that even before, long before Chebukati Commission, there was a way they used to work, consultation. So the ECK will invite the Commissioner of Police at that time to sit with them and tell them what his plan is for the country as we head into an election. So we have an election to run. We have a body that should run this, but it's disputed. So from where you sit tonight, how do you run this election? How do you ensure that at the end of the day, no political side is going to complain? Because as I asked, and I really wanted to ask the Speaker this, as I asked, there are issues that have been raised about Chebukati and him running the next election and having bungled the first election in 2017. There are issues that have been raised about the composition of that committee, which are very valid. So how do we run this election?
Well, let me put it this way. The mistakes that we have committed in the past are unknown, and I don't think you can heap it on IEBC. I think the government has got also a share of blame in this. We know that a number of commissioners resigned quite early. It took a long time for them to be replaced. Perhaps that is being seen as one of the weaknesses. We know IEBC has requested Parliament to pass certain laws. This has taken so long to go through. Some of them are not through yet, and yet the election is around the corner. So how do we go forward? First of all, I say, let IEBC run matters of running the electoral process. Let it be responsible because the Constitution says so. Okay. It's not me saying so. The Constitution says IEBC is responsible for running the matters relating to the elections. The other parties, I think we have to be very clear. Nobody has said the other parties cannot come in. They are very important. They play a very important role in elections. But let them be directed. In our times, even the police seconded to us were under the ACK. So if we are going to have people coming in, let them come in at the technical level, okay, where the IEBC can demonstrate its authority. I don't see someone saying that Chebukati will feel intimidated. It's not a question of intimidation. And don't forget that we are just human beings.
Okay.
When you have your boss sitting there, you are a lot more careful of how to go about things anyway.
Okay.
You maybe feel.
I thought Chebukati is accountable to Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament is not there. So who is Chebukati's boss in all these members of the committee? Because we are saying things, ideally, I've been an election observer. I've been an election observer in 29 African countries. And I know for a fact that as established under Article 88 of the Constitution, the IBC is accountable to Parliament. So who are these other bosses sitting in the committee that you are referring to? Because we need not to mislead the public and say things that are over and above the average head so that they take it for a fact that Chebukati is being forced to sit, and all independent commissions, all constitutional commissions and independent offices are accountable to Parliament as an institution.
Okay.
Which member of Parliament sits in that committee?
Churchill, let me ask you.
Being independent does not necessarily mean that you go to micromanage what happened in an independent constitution.
If I may add, at what point did
the commission to run the affairs?
At what point did the IBC protest its independence? IBC participated in meetings of that committee until a political grouping raised eyebrows. Did IBC at that very juncture not realize that it needed not to take instruction from an external source to discover that its independence is going to be interfered with? These are the issues of concern that we should look at.
The problem we have here is that once we politicize our thinking and ally ourselves to certain groups so as to make an argument, we are getting the whole thing upside down. I think let's look at it professionally. What does the Constitution say? What does it expect?
Okay.
And expect that those who make comment on this divide themselves from biased groups and talk about what is ideal for this country. Let's look beyond our parties. Let's look beyond our groups. And I think we shall get a solution.
All right. I have a question for Suba Churchill. Churchill, there are fundamental issues that were raised by the UDA party, and I'd like you to address this. UDA feels that the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, is already supporting a group, is already supporting Raila Odinga's presidency. They feel PS Karanjo Kibicho is already supporting Raila's presidency. They feel already they have, there is a good framework with the IBC that they can run an election. Now, even Joe Musheru ICT. Now, the question is, this is a political party that is going for competition where they need a level playing field. You want to put ICT, you want to put PS, you want to put Interior with the group where the IBC is sitting. This is a cabinet secretary who is superior to Chebukati in whichever way you look at it. You want to put them in a group. So the feeling is you cannot put IBC under the control of this. And they're raising that question. And that is the question you're dismissing. And yet it's so fundamental.
I haven't dismissed it. My understanding of the work of this committee is that it is supposed to be a bridge that brings every actor that has a role to play in the electoral process, so that the IBC is properly, it is kind of trying to clarify issues under one roof, so that. Look, for example, what is holding IBC back with respect to ballot papers and all these procurements. All those matters are being contested in court. And so I thought at a personal level, I'm not speaking for any political grouping, that IBC would have an opportunity to tell the judges, look, how fast can we fast track these cases, because people, of course, have a reason to go and contest issues in court if they feel the process is not fair. IBC would have a reason to ask the Ministry of ICT that, to what extent have you been able to install 3G, 4G capacities and so on and so forth. But I do not think that any of those discussions are binding on IBC. In the ultimate end, it is the IBCs are supposed to say, having gotten this information and these ideas, we sit as a commission and decide on what to do next in light of this. But my own problem with IBC is that it has isolated itself. It has not done a stakeholder mapping to identify which stakeholder holds which influence, because all these actors, including civil society, we have some influence on the work of IBC. But IBC has failed miserably to cultivate cordiality with different stakeholders. And I liked it when I saw the interviews, when interviewees were bringing ideas on how IBC can instill public trust and confidence in its work. We have never seen any of those new commissioners, and even in football, when you hire new players, people want to see them in the field. There's a reason why you hired them. Why is it that several months down the road, we are not seeing the new faces of IBC commissioners as if they have joined the secretariat? Yet, the same less inspiring faces that we see every day that bungled the 2017 elections are the same ones now claiming they want more independence than they have had.
So Churchill, we need to end the show in a few, but Speaker, I want to bring this question to you now. We must run an election in this country, and we were just running the graphics there. This is not the first time the IBC is working with different government bodies. IBC has worked with the ORPP, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. Lazima, IBC works with the National Police. JLAC, the Judicial Committee on Elections. ISAF, that's the Election Security Arrangement Project. We have to run an election, Speaker. How do you propose going forward that this election is run in this country?
First, really, I really pity the African countries where my friend Suba Churchill has observed. It's no wonder why we are having so big problems with the African electoral processes. If really the remarks that are coming from this gentleman are anything to go by, he's really skirting around issues. We have clearly said that 3 cabinet secretaries, or rather, actually we have 3 cabinet secretaries here who have already taken a position, political position. In fact, my friend, the PS, actually said at some point that he's a Kenyan. He should also have a political opinion and he should express it as much as he wants. Yet, he's a public servant, he's a civil servant. And that, of course, gets us the wrong way, every other person, because supposed to be serving every other person, regardless of which political side affiliations they are in. And so for that reason, really, we can't have them then chairing this. If it is Mother Kome, the Chief Justice, even in the committee, if it is Mother Kome who is chairing this, the Chief Justice, they have a legal arrangement, they have a judiciary arrangement where they are fast-tracking how they will be resolving the legal disputes that arise from the elections, and that is perfectly in order. They have actually been having congregations, the meetings and seminars and workshops on the same, and that is perfectly in order. And they should wait now for those disputes on that side. Now, what should we do going forward? Run the election. We have to run. We have to run this election. The IBC should conduct this election, and the cooperation that we're talking about between the IBC and other agencies must be initiated by IBC. And it's not right to say that IBC has not shown any interest to work with other stakeholders. It has not shown any interest for public, but you cannot say that. IBC is constantly engaging stakeholders. In October this year, IBC had a very serious stakeholders forum where they are engaging political parties, they are engaging other players in the industry or in this area of electoral processes, and they have even released their timetables from time to time for input from other stakeholders. So you can't say they are not involving stakeholders. They in fact need to work with other agencies as much as possible.
So the point is, let the IBC run this election. That's your point.
Let the IBC run the election, and let the IBC be the one to engage stakeholders. Let the IBC, for example, engage Parliament on amendments of laws that relate to the electoral process. Let IBC engage the budget committee in the National Assembly, and also Treasury to be able to provide resources that are sufficient for them to run the election. Let IBC get in touch with the judiciary, the Chief Justice Martha Koome, and even have appointees from judiciary, have appointees from ICT Ministry to come and work with IBC within their framework, within their committees and departments, and let it be done within the mandate of IBC.
And Article 88. All right, Suba, you have to tell us how you want this election run, because you said that the IBC has secluded itself. So how in your mind, should this election be run?
I want to first of all state that, the fact that, there are state officers sitting there, for me, is not an issue. If you have ever observed elections in the United States of America, I would challenge you to tell me who is the chairman of the election management body in the US. It is entirely run, in most of Europe, entirely run by civil servants. Yet it comes out very credible, very accountable, quite fair, and legitimate. So this idea that because individuals are aligned to political parties or groupings, that they are bound to bango elections, when the time for elections will come, it is IBC that will activate its constituency coordinators. It is IBC that will recruit returning officers. So we are saying the same thing. IBC conduct the elections to the extent that is independent as possible, without necessarily fearing or feeling intimidated by the mere sitting or consultative sittings that take place that are not binding on it, because at the end of the day, IBC should know the provisions of the Constitution like the back of their own hands. But my point is, we have recently witnessed, and I want to demonstrate to you how incompetent the IBC is. We have recently witnessed youth failing to turn up for voter registration. One of the functions of the IBC is to conduct voter registration. Recently, I was shocked when one of the commissioners was reporting how to a Senate committee, how they were told by voters that they see no point. The question is, have they educated the young people who are going to be first-time voters on the importance of registering as a voter? Is their role just to employ clerks and expect young people? Is that not their function? That, to me, is an indictment on the IBC for failing to continually conduct voter education so that people, and most of first-time voters, are able to know why it is important to register as a voter, why it is important to vote, and why it is important to vote for credible leaders.
Can I come in?
Now, we have to give, even as you cut him short, make your final remarks, Commissioner, because we have to end the show.
What I want to remind my friend Churchill is that at one time in this country, the civil servants ran elections. We came away from that. We don't want to go back to that. Two, talking about registration, they were not able to register because you know exactly when the resources, funds, for that matter, were given to IBC. But really all I'm saying is, let IBC run the election. Let those who are involved in facilitating the running of the election be there. The judiciary, the judiciary should fast track the cases that are lying in the courts to enable IBC to go ahead. We don't have time. Everybody has to come in positively, and the professionals, please, let's get away from being biased. Let's talk about what is good for this country. If we look for the future of this country, I think we'll all contribute positively without lying on one side or the other. Let's be forward-looking.
Speaker, final comment.
Well, I agree with the former commissioner that let IBC run this election. And let's not get to the issue of, for example, the issue of registration, because that opens a new page altogether. Because, again, IBC was not provided with sufficient resources to do the registration of members. And sometimes some of us actually think we are now having what we call gerrymandering, like it happens in the USA, whereby you disable a certain constituency from voting by not providing certain resources, so that then you achieve a certain goal by the end of the election process. So really, that is another topic for another day, maybe. But for now, now let the IBC run this election. Let us respect the mandate of the IBC, and let other senior government officers stop salivating at the mandate of other agencies and start creating other ad hoc committees without properly anchoring them in law.
Yeah.
That would lead us into anarchy in this country.
All right.
Yeah.
Well said, gentlemen. When we began the show, we were asking where does the buck stop? Clearly, gentlemen, tonight, Suba Churchill, Jack Tumwa, and John Nagushia, the buck stops with the IBC. On the 15th of August next year, when the results should be declared, if things fail in this country, definitely it falls on the doorstep of the IBC. The more reason the gentlemen tonight say, let the IBC run the election under Article 88 of the Constitution and 249 of the Constitution that creates it. Thank you very much for watching Kivumbi 2022. My name is Ken Mijungo. On behalf of the whole team, Eric Latif earlier, and we had CMD Executive Director Franklin Mukwanja and the sign language interpreter. Thank you for watching. We do this again next week, same place, same time. Have a good night. God bless. We begin our broadcast very early in the morning. Stay with KTN News. Good night.
KTN News. Get the whole